Well, hi, how's everybody tonight? Before I turn this over to Erica and Katie to do the official introductions, I just want to say a few things. First, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is the third reading of our literary festival this season. And we're really happy to have Nick Laird here tonight, novelist and poet. So I wanted to thank him for coming out. Greatly appreciate it. I want to thank a few people, thank all our sponsors, particularly the Irish Studies Department, who without their help, Nick would not be here tonight. I would like to remind you all that we have 2 more readings this season. On April 21st, it's a Tuesday, Adam Zagajewski will be here. So please come on out. And Yiyun Lee, who was supposed to be here about 2 weeks ago and had an emergency, we have rescheduled, and she'll be here on the very last day of school on April 30th. But please tell everybody and get people to come on out for these readings. And the more the merrier. There is some food in the back, so please go ahead and grab some and eat and drink, because if you don't, it'll be sitting there, and then I will start eating it after the meeting, and I really would rather not do that. We do have some books outside to purchase, and Nick would be glad to sign some afterwards. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Erica. Oh, and Nick will be glad to answer any questions after the reading as well. So get them ready.
Nick Laird is both an esteemed poet and novelist. He grew up in Cookstown, County Tyrone in Northern Ireland and attended Sydney Sussex College in Cambridge. Before he focused on his writing, Nick Laird worked at a global law firm, Allen & Overy. He was then married in 2004 to novelist Zadie Smith. To a Fault is Nick Laird's first collection of poems, which was published in January 2005. This collection was nominated for the Forward Prize for the Best First Collection in the UK. In 2007, he wrote On Purpose, another collection of poems. This collection won the Somerset Maugham Award and the Geoffrey Faber Memorial Prize in 2008. Nick Laird truly can do it all. From poetry to fiction, his work is astounding.
Nick Laird's first novel, Utterly Monkey, was published in May 2005. That same year, it won the Betty Trask Award for Best First Novel. Utterly Monkey was also shortlisted for the Commonwealth Best First Novel Award, the Irish Novel of the Year Award, and the Carey Group Style Fiction Prize. In a New York Times book review of Utterly Monkey, Michiko Kakutani praises Nick Laird as a writer with wonderfully original and limber voice, who seems able to jump genres as easily as he shifts narrative gears. His new book, Glover's Mistake, was published today in Britain and will be available in the US in July. Please welcome Nick Laird.
Hello, thank you for coming. Thank you for those kind introductions. Thanks to Alan and Lisa and Jerry Doe for having me. And congratulations on the Final Four. Now that you're on my side. I'm going to read a little bit of fiction and then some poems. We'll start with the fiction. This is from my new book, which is actually published today, which is weird, but I was there last week for the publication. So I'll tell you a little bit about this. It's called Glover's Mistake. There's 3 people in it. One of them, the main one, is a bit of a weirdo. We're going to learn about him now. So this is, I tried to pick a bit where nothing really happened in, and then I realised that all the bits where nothing happened in involved drugs. So there's a little bit of drugs in this bit, which seems to be a theme of mine, but I don't know why. So just get past that. David is going to see a lady called Ruth, who he has a crush on. That's sort of really all you need to know. This is a bit of background on David. So I'll read this, and then we'll do some poems, and then we can all go home. Or you can ask me some questions, and then we'll go home. On a wet, dark, interminable Wednesday, one of those winter days that lacks an afternoon, Ruth emailed to invite David to dinner. He'd never been asked to her flat before, to the Barbican, and Glover's email address didn't feature in the recipients section. The note was casual, and he matched the tone, replying with one line, "Sure, that'd be nice." Probably nothing would happen, but the night before he was due for dinner, he ironed his sky blue shirt. This action carried a certain evidential weight. He loathed ironing, its peculiar blend of fussiness and tedium, and got away with wearing round-neck jumpers at school. However, that particular shirt, according to his mother, brought out his eyes. The day itself was a write-off. The only thing achieved was managed after hours when David, on the rota to supervise study group from 4 to 6 p.m, helped Susan Chang, who smelt of vanilla ice cream, remove a paper jam from the photocopier. He felt delighted by his small victory, and to celebrate, and in preparation for the evening, decided to smoke some of the emergency weed he kept hidden in the locked drawer of his desk. He visited the staff toilet, perched on the edge of the flip-down lid, and skinned up. The joint was small, heavy on green, pointy as a golf tee, and would take the edge off the nervousness he was feeling. It was not beyond reason that it might be tonight. Ruth was not accustomed to being alone. He slipped the joint inside the pocket of his jacket, and at 6 o'clock exactly, headed up the ribbed linoleum stairs, wedging the fire door ajar with an empty Coke can. Out on the roof of the school, the evening sky was enormous. Tidal night was rolling in across the rooftops, and the horizon was stacked with sinking bands of oranges and reds and pinks. Sometimes David saw things and wanted to tell someone about them, face to face, eye to eye. He had had a girlfriend once, Sarah, years ago. They'd met in the Students' Union in the last term at Goldsmiths. She'd spilt his beer and then insisted that he buy them both another. Over the next 4 months, it happened that nothing became real to him unless he'd told her about it. If they weren't together, they rang each other in the afternoon to describe what they'd done in the morning, spent the evening recounting their afternoons. Back then, David still had hair, and one stoned lunchtime, Sarah had used her flatmate's clippers to shave it off. David saw what he would look like bald, insane and shiny, a spoon with eyes. In her bedsit, above a fried chicken takeaway in Turnpike Lane, they watched a lot of New German cinema, lit joss sticks, and had clumsy, vehement sex. In the moment, he'd once accidentally caught her fish-shaped earring, and her ear had bled on the sheet. She hadn't cried, but had squirmed below him faster, panting, and then slapped him on the shoulder hard, saying, "Now hold me down, now put your hand across my mouth, now hurt me, hurt me." David had been terrified. When she went to India for 6 months, she wrote to tell him it was over. It did not escape his notice that the letter had been posted, presumably from Heathrow, on the same day that she left. He'd only been in love once, and it wasn't her. Queuing in the student cafeteria in his first week at Goldsmiths, he had reached the checkout before discovering, in a hot flush of shame, that he'd forgotten his wallet. The girl in the line behind him had tapped him on the back, and when he had turned, had pressed a £5 note into his hand, saying, "Take it, really, it's fine." He had never seen anyone be so kind. She didn't know him at all. He had his lunch directly behind her and couldn't take his eyes off her hair, thick and dark and shiny as an Eskimo's. Natalie was a third year, he found out, and when he met her the next day to pay her back, they'd ended up eating lunch together, and he'd made her clear green eyes close repeatedly with laughter. David leaned against the red brick chimney stack and lit his spliff. He thought how he was growing old and awed, how he was falling prey to calcified and strange routines. The thick, unfiltered smoke began to spread its anaesthetic chill throughout his head. 2 pigeons sat on the bitumen lid of a water tank, cooing and soothing the traffic below. He moved towards them and they fluttered off, settling on a lower ledge. In the distance, the British Telecom minaret rose above the hum, and the satellite dishes on the roof stood out like white carnations fixed in buttonholes. He stubbed what was left on the lid of the tank and was halted for a second by the presence of the moon. It was cinematic, scaly and yellow, and it crept up silently behind him as if it meant to do him harm. On the pavement, foggy but relaxed, he put on Elgar's Sea Pictures and caught a 38 on Oxford Street up into the city. The Christmas lights had been erected but were not yet switched on. He was going to be early, so he got off by Turnmill Street to walk. This was the hour before the evening started, the hour when anything might happen. It was the hour when the newspapers were skimmed and ineptly refolded like road maps, abandoned on the vacant seats of tubes and trains and buses. It was the hour when the smell of cumin and curry would waft across his parents' garden in Hendon. It was heaven. It was the dog-walking hour. It was the hour of a million heating systems clicking on and thrumming into life. The hour of a blue plastic bag whipping above the building site on Clerkenwell Road in spasms of desire. Would Ruth be wondering right now about tonight? Would she be looking down at London in transition and thinking anything could happen? This hour must once have been the kingdom of the lamplighters and subject to the piecemeal point-by-point illumination. But now the street lights all came on in a single instant pulse, a blink, as David stopped by Smithfield Meat Market to spark his Marlborough light, where the floors had been hosed down and water ran in rivulets out into the street, creating tiny eddies around his sensible brown loafers. Natalie had graduated a few weeks after the incident in the cafeteria. She'd found work in a graphic designers in Ascot, though she came back to London at weekends to stay with her boyfriend in Clapham. Every so often she spoke to David on the phone, but was always too busy to meet. So on Friday evenings and Monday mornings, David took to hanging around the Waterloo station, along the route where she'd have to walk from the overground train from Sunningdale down to the underground to catch the Northern Line and back. He did that for 2 months and never saw her, not once. He had wanted her so much he could barely think straight. He wrote her hundreds of poems and letters that he never sent, and a few that he did. He wanted her in his arms, in his eyes, in his kidney and spleen and heart. He wanted to unbutton her white shirt and slide the snakeskin belt out of the loops of her Levi 503s. Jittery with excitement in the station, he would take up his position by the ticket machines and scrutinise for an hour or so the unknown faces passing through the barriers until, eventually, he would give up and move off with a grimace and a heavy gait, as if some part of him ached when he took a step. As the lift descended the 23 floors to Ruth's flat, David stared at himself in the mirror. Here was the elliptic face. The joint had left his eyes watery and the walk had taken it out of him. His sweaty head shone like a conker and his cheeks were watermelon pink. He pulled a tissue from his pocket and blotted himself. At the second knock, he heard Ruth shout from inside, "It's open!" He tried the door, and here she was, walking towards him in dark skinny jeans and a black kimono jacket. Her hair was still damp, swept neatly into a side parting, and such unfussiness lent her face a new authority. "Hey, hey, hey," David said, for no good reason he could think of, lifting his arms like some favourite uncle. "Wonderful to see you." She offered her cheekbones to kiss in turn, and then presented a cordless telephone, the mouthpiece covered by one of her palms. "I'm just in the middle of something." He mouthed sure, and she said, "The living room's through there," nodding up the corridor, before pushing the door shut with a naked foot. David noticed that her toes were not beautiful, misshapen as pebbles, but the nails were painted electric blue. Thank you. I'll read a few poems. I'll start with a poem called Cuttings, which is the first poem in the first book. And this is set in my local barber shop in Cookstown. And it is The problem with having to introduce poems is that I now say this poem is about the possibilities of tenderness in a militarised community. So this poem is about the possibilities of tenderness in a militarised community, possibly. Anyway, cuttings. It's about me. It's about me and my dad getting my hair cut, really, is what it's about. Methodical dust shades the combs and pomade, while the wielded goodwill of the sunlight picks out a patch of paisley wallpaper to expand leisurely on it. The cape comes off with a matador's flourish, and the scalp's washed to get rid of the chaff. This is the closeness, casual once in the trenches, and is deft as remembering when not to mention the troubles or woman or prison. They talk of the parking or carving or missing. A beige lino, a red barber's chair, one ceramic brown sink and a scenic wall calendar of the glories of Ulster, sponsored by J.B. Crane Hire or some crowd flogging animal feed. About, say, every second month or so, he will stroll and cross the widest street in Ireland and step beneath the bandaged pole. Eelmen, gunmen, the long dead, the police, and my angry and beautiful father, tilted, expectant and open as in a deck chair outside on the drive, persuaded to wait for a meteor shower, but with his eyes budded shut, his head full of lather and unusual thoughts. I always want to cough at this bit to diffuse the tension, but so this poem is, I'll read a love poem called Light Pollution next. It's self-explanatory. Light pollution. You're the patron saint of elsewhere, jet-lagged and drinking apple juice, eyeing from the 6th floor window a kidney-shaped swimming pool, the very shade of Hockney blue. I know the left-hand view of life, I think, and it's as if I have, of late, forgotten something in the night. I wake alone and freezing, still keeping to my side. Each evening, tidal night rolls in, and the atmosphere is granted a depth of field by satellites, the hammock moon, aircraft sinking into Heathrow. Above the light pollution, among the drift of stars tonight, there might be other traffic, migrations of heron and crane, their spectral skeins, convergent symbols, arrows, weather systems, white flotillas bearing steadily towards their summer feeding, a million flapping sheets. Who knows how they know? The aids to navigation might be memory and landmarks, or the brightest constellations. Perhaps some iron in the blood detects magnetic north. I wish one carried you some token, some post-it note or ticket, some particular to document this instant of self-pity, his Orphic loneliness with dog. Advances, none miraculous, though the deadness of the house will mean your coming home may seem an anticlimax, somehow, and a trespass. I mentioned his Orphic loneliness with dog there, so I'll read my dog poem. I think you're on a hiding to nothing if you write a poem about your pet dog. I think as a rule of thumb, don't do it. But I've written a poem about my pet dog. She's a pug called Maud. If you don't know what a pug is that dog you're not supposed to get because it can't really breathe. And you spend all your time wondering if she's having a really great time or if she's having a fit. On the plus side, she does look a bit like E.T. crossed with an Ewok. So, anyway, there's a word in this poem you might not know. It's called karumi, which means lightness of touch. They use it all the time to talk about haikus. It's a Japanese word. Other things mentioned in this are emperors. So the pugs were bred to be kept by the Chinese emperors. Hogarth, the English painter, used to paint pugs all the time. And also, weirdly, the pug was a mascot for the House of Orange, which is a means something in Northern Ireland, doesn't mean anything here. Anyway, I'll just read it. It's 3 sonnets. It's called Pug. Bruiser, bat face, baby bear, bounce in your moon suit of apricot fur with some fluff in your mouth or a twig or a feather. Emperors bored you. You with the prize-winning ears, who grew from a glove to a moccasin slipper and have taken to secrecy recently, worming in under the furniture. To discover you here is to keep still and listen. The settee begins wheezing. Hogarth loved the fact that for your first half year you hardly differed from a rabbit. When you're overexcited, you tend to get hiccups. You squeak when you yawn, and your tongue is unfurled in a semicircle, salmon pink on coastal rock. That trilobite embedded in the slate roof of your open mouth, perfect for the mascot of the House of Orange. Your weapon of choice is the sneeze. Above the winter garden, a hair-thin moon, reflecting. You're open as a haiku, all karumi, hint and sigh. The Buddha would have liked you. Watch us from your separate dream, then pad across to clamber through the plastic flap and plant your paws four square again on grass, like this. Your hackles bristle and you ridge your back and bark and bark and bark at shadows and the fence, everything behind the fence, the cuttings and the railway foxes. I read that poem once at a festival just after I'd written it, and the lady came up to me afterwards and said, my husband is the pug judge at Crufts, which is our equivalent of Westminster, and he runs a thing called the Pug Dog Weekly Bulletin. You know where this is going. And could we have that poem for the Pug Dog Weekly Bulletin? And I thought, definitely, because... So in my acknowledgements at the start of the book it says, you know, Agni, TLS, London Review of Books, Pug Dog Weekly Club Bulletin. Does say in my acknowledgements. Anyway. Where are we? So I'll read a couple more love poems. This is called The Present Writer. A kitchen moon, the ocean night. By the sink, the purest thing that I can think is sitting, like the ghost of a lighthouse in Atlantic mist, a full glass of skimmed milk. The wind outside is tugging at the rigging of clematis and the filled mast of the apple tree. We are in bed, 2 by 2, and side by side as animals, bowsprit, topcastle. Love, I'd turn for you clean living, relinquished drinking, fighting, singing. The ghost can only long in man. You were asleep but talking. Which way to the good? At the next wet, we sail forth. This poem is called... Oh yeah, I know what I'll do. I'll do The Hall of Medium Harmony, which is a place in China. I haven't been to China, but I did read A Lonely Planet Guide to China once, which I felt qualified me to write a poem about Beijing. So everything in this is true. They have 9,999 rooms in the Forbidden City. Anyway, this is the poem. It's called The Hall of Medium Harmony. I thought that was too good a name of a room not to write about. In lieu of a Gideon Bible, the bedside table drawer has a Lonely Planet Guide to China and a year-old auto trader. You skim through the soft tops, the imports, the salvage and breakers, then pick up the book. Over there, they are 8 hours ahead, so it must be approximately dawn in the Forbidden City, where something might evade the guides already at the entrance, might glide right past the lion dogs on guard, asleep in bronze, might fire the dew on the golden tiles, ignite each phoenix on its ridge, light. 9,999 rooms begin to warm under its palm. Here, in the book, is a diagram. There is the hall of union and peace, the hall of medium harmony, the Meridian Gate, the Imperial Library, the inner golden bridges. You fidget. You are you admit, one of the earth's more nervous passengers. But it's different, this, a reasonable space. In the palace of an afternoon, a child king hiding in a curtain, listening, for a second apart from the turn of the thing, for a second forgetting the narrative's forfeit, how nothing can outlast its loss, that solace is found, if at all, in the silence that follows each footstep let fall on the black lacquer floor of the now, of the here, where you are, in the sunlight, blinking, abroad. I'll just read another couple and then I'll stop talking. I was a lawyer for years, and I was okay at it, but I didn't enjoy it that much. And this is a poem about getting involved in a sort of sedentary job that maybe isn't for you. It uses as its analogy bears. Apparently bears in this country get a taste for fast food sometimes. I don't know if it can be true, it's supposed to be true. And they forget how to hunt and fish and forage, and they spend all the time trying to get Happy Meals out of people's dustbins. This poem is about that, about becoming accustomed to a certain way of life. It's called The Bear Hug. It's not as if I'm intending on spending the rest of my life doing this. Be suited, rebooted, filing to work, this poem a fishbone in my briefcase. The scaffolding clinging St. Paul's is less urban ivy than skin peeling off. A singular sprinkler shaking his head spits at the newsprint of bird shit. It's going unread. Gooseberry Pop-Tarts, stale wheaten bread, Nutella and toothpaste. An open-armed crane turns to embrace the aeroplanes passing above. I hadn't the foggiest notion. Imagine me munching cardboard and rubbish, but that's just what they meant when they said, come in, you deadbeat, take the weight off your paws. You're a big weary grizzly with a hook through his mouth. Here, have some of this love. Okay. It's a poem called Descent. It's prefaced with the line by Walt Whitman, and what I assume you shall assume, which in its context is a good line, but not when it's given to you by a politician maybe. This poem is about that. It's called Descent. When he stands behind the podium, you aren't a pixel in the crowd. If he bangs his fist and drum, your hands don't imitate some bird trapped in a slick, a storm patrol that beats, that doesn't know it's beaten. You will not come to his assistance or attention. Your face won't loom out from the stills, an interested moon, if they ever sift the evidence. When he comes to put the call in, when he rings the final tocsin, when he cries blue ruin and alarum, be hereabouts or somewhere, talking, reading a book over dinner, returning laden from the store. Don't add to his reckoning. Death is the wages of war, not sin. And there's no anthem for the country of your origin, that landscape you're really in. The fathomless interior, the darkest heart no Mungo Park or Christian Barnard tried to chart. The native guide to lead you through the blankness on this map is you. Your truest borders are your skin. You are your own first citizen, your plumber and historian, your chaperone, your one son king. But if by chance you both appear at that age-dark revolving door, its panelled glass and ambience suggestive of the Strand entrance to the Savoy Hotel, that is, at the gates to heaven, insist on stepping right into his path and asking for an autograph. Then as he takes the pen to write, make some remark on grace and doubt, and the duties of the infidel as you pull a can of petrol from your barrage of shopping bags. I'll read a quick poem. This is a short little poem called Done, and then I'll read one long one, then I'll stop. So done. This is about the end of our relationship. Done. We've come to bag the evidence. This might be the scene of a murder, dust sheets and silence and blame. The flat empties its stomach into the hall. We have given back letters and eaten our words. You wrote off the Volvo. I gave you verrucas. And like the window of a jeweller's after closing, the shelves in the study offer up nothing. I slowly take the steps down one by one, and for the first time maybe, notice the chaos, the smouldering traffic, the litter, bystanders, what have you. And for my last poem tonight, I shall read a poem set in Boston where I lived for a while, during the coldest winter in 20 years or something. So a lot of snow, and snow came into my poems everywhere. I couldn't keep it out. So this poem is about that. It's about trying to get to sleep and not being able to. So those weird leaps the mind makes whenever you have insomnia. It's called The Evening Forecast for the region. Thanks for being so attentive. The weatherman for Boston ponders whether I'd bet not. The snowstorm coming north will come to town tonight. I swim around in bed. My head's attempting to begin its routine shift down through the old transmission to let me make the slope and slip the gear stick into neutral at the crown, before freewheeling down the ocean road descent into the ghost town. There, the coastal one, with the stone pier bare as skin, familiar seafront houses hunched and boarded over for the winter. And beside the tattered nets, a rowing boat lies upturned on the beach. Aside from a mongrel, inside, asleep at someone's slippered feet. Everything faces the sea, but the plumbing sighs are almost human. Airlocks collect and slide from duct to duct so the radiators whine. The hiding places grow further hidden. A priest hole's given over to a spider's architecture. A well tries on a grassy manhole cover, threaded, dangerous as fingers. An ivied sycamore in the forest at Drummanor, resonant and upright and empty as an organ pipe, before a panicked hour a boy will not be found. I arch one foot to scratch the other. I would shed myself to segue into sleep, I would enter, but the opening is of a new off-Broadway hamlet. The gulf is war. This hiatus, my father's hernia, the clefts, a treble on the score of Scott Joplin's Entertainer. This respite is a care home, the recess, a playground. This division I slither into is a complicated sum, 13/7. I give in. I turn the television on. The weatherman for Boston is discussing how, thank heaven, the snowstorm missed and turned and headed out to sea. Is it particularly human, this, to lie awake, to touch the papery encircling bark, but watch through a knot and wait? Everyone on earth is sleeping. I am the keel scrape beneath the tidal breathing which is shifting down through tempo to the waveform of the sea, the gathered even draw and lift of air. Further east, a blizzard of homogeneous decisions breathes above the folding and unfolding pain and counterpain of waves, as if the white so loves the world it tries to make a map of it, exact and blank to start again, but the sea will not stay under it. The rice paper wafers are melting, millions of baby nails cling to the wind, lifting hoarsely off the Atlantic. The whole thing is mesmeric. For hours the snow will fall like rhythm. Listen. Thanks very much, guys. We were going to do some questions. Someone's left their phone up here. Did I know that? No? Maybe it'll ring. Okay. Did anyone have any questions? Hi.
Really simple question.
Sure.
Which collection were you just reading from?
This one. And this one. This one. They're Norton in America. They don't look like this. They've got different covers. Okay. Hi.
Well, beautiful poetry and beautiful prose, but one serious objection. You can't catch a 38 bus from Oxford Street to the city.
You
Because it
can.
runs you can?
You can, from Oxford Street straight past the Barbican.
No, but the 38?
Yeah.
The 38
30 that goes to
runs
Hackney.
It runs along Piccadilly and Shaftesbury Avenue and then goes to the Angel. Now you can take a 55 to the intersection of Clerkenwell Road
I'm
and
not
St
sure.
John Street,
I'm
which
pretty-
would be the one to take.
Well, you can definitely get 38 from New Oxford Street.
New Oxford Street, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, New Oxford Street,
Yeah.
but not to the city.
Well, it goes past the Barbican, then the Barbican's in the city.
I'm sorry, I just...
This won't be resolved until we
It's a
get a
delightful
giggle.
reading, but I just couldn't resist.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
right. But it's a very, you have a very distinctive poetic voice. I wonder who you claim as influences.
Well, all the sort of Irish poets who I read, so starting with Yeats, but mostly Heaney and Muldoon, really. Certainly Heaney, I wouldn't write without him. I was given his first book, Death of a Naturalist, when I was 15, studying GCSEs, and before that I'd always been interested in words. I'd always been interested in sound of words. When I was young, I would sit in church and become obsessed with like the beautiful names in the Bible, like Nebuchadnezzar, and I used to walk around going, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, just the sound of it I really loved. But until I got given Heaney's book, I didn't realise it was poetry that I was actually interested in. And that kind of directed me towards the thing. And lots of American poets now. I like Louise Gluck and early Jory Graham and Ammons and lots of people. Anyone else? Should we get a drink? No?
Well, your journey into and out of law, a career in law.
Say
Your journey into and then out of your career in law.
Yeah.
How'd that play out for you?
Well, I resigned.
What got you into it?
Well, the students asked me this afternoon. I kind of made a deal with my dad that he would pay for me to go to university if I became a lawyer. And I'd initially applied to do law at Cambridge, and then I changed to English, and then the deal was I would do law afterwards. But that makes it sound like I didn't want to do it. I did kind of want to do it, and I never thought I'd become a writer. And if you grew up in, as I'm sure maybe you know, if you grew up in Ireland and you're halfway smart in a small rural town, the two things you do are either medicine or law. And so there was always that kind of expectation that I would become a lawyer and even come back to Belfast and practice in Belfast and set up a practice in Cookstown maybe, but that didn't happen. So law is lost as poetry's gain, perhaps, I don't know. There you go. Anyone? Hi.
Hi, I missed the introduction, but I wonder how you feel about readings. I don't know, did that come up? And if you think about your poems out loud when you're writing them, or if you're thinking about them more.
Yeah, I think about them out loud. You've got to read the poem out loud when you write it. It's got to sound good. I don't declaim them in my living room. Not like here, but I voice them all the time to myself as I'm writing. But I do that when I write fiction as well. Actually, I voice it. Not whispered. Just you have to hear the voice of the thing, because each of the lines it's involved with your breath, and the breath is the unit of a poem. So you must do it out loud. Was that what you asked me? Okay. Yeah. So readings are good. Readings sometimes help you work out which poem does work and which one doesn't actually. And a lot of the times I think that needs to be changed in the middle of a reading. Anyone? Okay, well thank you very much all for coming.